Maria, what are the main steps of the sponsorship application?
So first of all, you prepare the package, then you submit it for an online portal. About 2 to 4 weeks later, you will receive a biometrics request. Everybody receives biometrics requests. If you reside in Canada, you will go to Service Canada to do your biometrics, which is like fingerprints and photographs. If you reside overseas, you will go to the nearest visa office where you also do your biometrics submission. After that, normally you receive a request to do your panel physician medical exam. It really depends how long you wait for that request. Could be a couple weeks, could be a couple months. And after you do your medicals, then you can expect to have your final approval. If your application is well prepared and there's nothing missing, then usually there's no additional request. At least like we almost never receive additional requests because we make sure the application is properly prepared right away. And that actually saves you a lot of time. And once you receive your final approval, you have to respond to an email with certain information about yourself. And then you'll receive a link to do online landing for a special portal. And once you do this landing, then you receive your electronic confirmation of permanent residence. That means you are a permanent resident of Canada. Congratulations. And the next step, you just wait for your PR card. But with this electronic confirmation of permanent residence, you can already get your new social insurance number and your new healthcare. If you need any help with preparing your application, you can book a consultation with Natalia or me, and we'll be happy to assist you.
Maria, what is the minimum income requirement for a sponsor to sponsor their spouse or common law partner?
So there is no minimum income requirement. However, you have to convince the officer that you are not at risk for going on social assistance. So if you don't properly demonstrate that you have enough income to support yourself and your spouse, the officer could refuse the application or return it. So you have to make sure you either have a job or you're self-employed or you have savings or you have somebody who supports you. Let's say you're a part-time student and parents support you, and you have to have a sufficient amount of evidence provided through like a properly prepared document package so that the officer does not have doubts that you would go on social assistance. But there's no minimum number, and every situation is different. Whenever somebody comes to get a consultation, I always look at which documents would be good to provide for the sponsor for this unique situation. And if you want to book a consultation with Natalia or me, you can click on the link below and select a slot.
Should someone submit an application themselves, or it's better to hire a representative?
It's a good question. I usually recommend to look at whether you have enough time to work on your application, because it's going to require a lot of your time to look at everything in detail. And if you're a very busy person, perhaps it's best to just trust a representative to make sure there's no mistakes. If you're somebody who has a lot of free time and is willing to read the complicated government guides, reread all the forms that you fill out, and you're a very, very detail-oriented person, then you can submit it by yourself, but I still recommend for you to hire a representative to at least check your application, because we as representatives often still find something in the end that should be corrected so that you can avoid time and money wasted in case your case gets returned or refused. We offer both full representation and file check. So if you're interested to get somebody who's very experienced, we have over 12 years of experience, click on the link below and book a consultation with us. Natalia, why would somebody need a consultation in case they're prepared to submit spousal sponsorship by themselves?
You spend so much time reading guides, trying to find the documents. If you book a consultation with us, in 30 minutes, you're going to get very detailed explanation and guidance, and you can save yourself possibly months of time. If you have a consultation before you prepare your application for our review, your application will be with all the documents required, with all the information needed, and it will take less time for us to check your application. Less time we spend reviewing your application, less you pay for our work.
Make sure you follow our account for more useful tips on submitting spousal sponsorship application or on other immigration options. If somebody is a visitor, can they submit in Canada spousal sponsorship and also apply for a work permit?
Yes, if you are in Canada in a legal status as a student, visitor, or worker, you can apply for your spousal sponsorship in Canada, and you can apply for an open work permit, which will allow you to work in Canada while your application is being processed. Usually, those work permits are approved within 3-4 months, but it can be longer. Either way, we recommend to apply for both spousal sponsorship and a work permit, so you have all options available to you.
Often, spousal sponsorships are actually approved even faster than work permits, but you never know. So this is true, you should always apply for both, just in case. If you need our help, click on the link below to book a consultation with one of the immigration consultants, and we'll be happy to assist you.
Are there any situations when a sponsor who is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident cannot file sponsorship to sponsor their spouse?
So there are many situations. I will cover the most basic ones. First of all, if you are on social assistance, such as Ontario Works, then you cannot sponsor your spouse. But if you are on social assistance for reasons of disability, then you can sponsor your spouse. If you've had recent bankruptcy, if you have criminal problems, if you were sponsored less than 5 years ago by someone, then you cannot sponsor a new spouse. These are the most basic ones. And we also recommend to make sure that as a sponsor, you have proper proof of income. If the officer has any doubts about your ability to support yourself, if he has reasons to believe that you can go on social assistance and it's at some point soon because you don't have any stable income or savings, then the officer can also refuse you. There's no strict requirement. It's often case-by-case situations. And if you need help, if you have questions about it, feel free to book a consultation with us and we will be happy to assist you. You can click on the link below. So a lot of people ask, like, what if I apply to sponsor my spouse? What are the rules in terms of how long I have to stay married to them in common law relationship after the file gets approved?
If your relationship was genuine and after becoming a permanent resident, you split up with your partner, there is no requirement that you have to stay married. What if after a sponsored person become a permanent resident, their relationship with the sponsor break up and marriage doesn't work anymore? Is there any requirement how long they have to stay together and be married?
So the government became very nice and they changed the old rule and the old requirement that you have to be in a relationship with your spouse who's a Canadian citizen for a certain amount of time. They removed that rule because there were situations of abuse and people stayed in a relationship for the sake of not losing their PR cards, and that was very sad. So now, the day you became a permanent resident, if something happened later, it doesn't matter how long after you became a permanent resident of Canada, and you split up, now the permanent resident status acquired through spousal sponsorship or common law sponsorship process is not conditional. What are the average processing times for processing spousal sponsorship or common law partner sponsorship applications in Canada right now?
While we cannot guarantee any timing, usually it takes from 3 to 12 months to process application.
And you can always check processing times on the IRCC website. If you just Google IRCC processing times, you'll find it. But whatever you find is approximately accurate. It's not exactly accurate. Natalia, how long on average does it take for the person to prepare a really good, really strong application for permanent residence through the sponsorship process?
From our experience, it can take from 1 to 6 months, depending how diligent you are. We have experience preparing urgent emergency applications within 3-4 days, but we do not recommend doing this and going with this option. 1 to 6 months.
And if you need help with preparing your package, both Natalia and I became licensed immigration consultants over 10 years ago, and we specialize in spousal sponsorships as well as express entry and a few other programs, but we can really provide you proper support and proper help. You can click on the link below and book a consultation with one of us. Natalia, what happens after the application for spousal sponsorship is submitted?
If your application is complete, it starts to process, and there are several stages: sponsor approval, approval in principle. But for you, as applicants, the next step is medical request. Then you wait for the final approval. And right now, if you are in Canada, landing is done through the online platform.
And how often, can you expect that you could be called out for an interview?
This is really rare. Right now, the approach is if your application is incomplete and there are any serious doubts, your application will be returned or refused. But if there are any issues that the officer wants to clarify, you might be called for an interview with your sponsor.
If you do get a request for an interview, we can help you be prepared for this interview. And by the way, my name is Maria Valenta. I'm an immigration consultant with over 10 years of experience, and this is Natalia Romanenko. She also has over 10 years of experience, and if you need our help, you can book a consultation with one of us through the link below. What if a spousal sponsorship application is refused? Can you reapply?
Depending on the reasons, if the application was refused because of an error or insufficient information or document missing, yes, you can submit a new application as soon as you fix the reason why the previous application was refused.
So yes, we do recommend to simply resubmit the application instead of going through lengthy court appeal processes. It's much cheaper and faster to resubmit the application and make sure this time it's a properly prepared application. If you need help with that, you can always reach out to us and book a consultation through the link below.
Does it ever happen that the application is returned or refused by mistake by the officer?
We both know, with having lots of experience, that it actually happens. I wouldn't say often, but it does happen quite a bit. In order to avoid that, you have to make sure your application package is super clear. The best thing you can do is structure your application package very clearly, name all the files properly, and make sure important documents are not hidden somewhere that the officer has to look for it. If you do that, the chances of the officer making an error become like very tiny.
Maria, what are the most common reasons for applications being refused or returned?
If your application doesn't contain all required documents according to the checklist, if there's one checkmark missing or one signature missing in one of the forms, officer simply returns the whole package to you and you have to submit it all over again. Later on, if you pass this first completeness stage, an officer starts to go in detail about your application and he notices a lot of inconsistencies, then the officer can have serious doubts about whether you provided truthful information in your application. He can refuse, or he can be nice enough and send you a procedural fairness letter, giving you opportunity to explain all these errors. So you have to be very careful and make sure everything is consistent. And also I recommend for you to at least get proper file check from a licensed representative to make sure there's no red flags in your application. And if there are certain potential red flags, that they're properly explained. So let's say your situation has something strange or unique and you leave it unexplained, you can also expect that officer can have doubts about the genuinity and refuse your application. Click on the link below if you want to book a consultation with one of our immigration consultants. Today we're here with Natalia Romanenko and my name is Maria Valenta. Both of us are experts in spousal sponsorships. We're licensed immigration consultants with over 10 years of experience. Natalia, thank you so much for joining me today because today I want to discuss a very important topic. It would be very helpful for our listeners to have a comprehensive spousal sponsorship consultation. A lot of people come to us for the consultation and we start talking about all these basics. And we spend so much time on it. And I thought it would be so helpful if someone already watches it ahead of time. Then when they can come for a consultation with you, let's say, they already know so much, they know all these basics, and they can focus on specific questions for their situation. And as a result, the time with you would be spent so much more efficient. Do you agree?
I agree totally, and thank you so much for inviting me. For those who don't know, we have been working with Maria over around a year now, but we've been in the same industry for over 10 years, and one of the specializations we have is the spousal sponsorship and same-sex sponsorship. Common law sponsorship. Many people don't know the difference. Overall, what Maria said is extremely important because when you come for a consultation and you don't know what you're doing, you're spending so much time, your time of the specialist, and you're not getting the result that you want. The result that you want is the fast processing of your application. And for this, you need to have certain documents, you need to understand the process. And when we have those consultations, most of the time, we spend so much time for unnecessary things and reviewing documents, spending so much time checking not grammar errors, but some things that could be easily fixed by our clients themselves, but they didn't know. So they take one consultation and then they fix their file and then they come back. So that's what we're here for. We want to give you some information ahead of time. So when you come for a consultation, you know what you need to bring with you to make it easy for you and for us and for the officer.
Exactly. You can be best prepared. You will already know the basics and you can focus on specific, unique questions for your situation. No matter how well we will give you this comprehensive overview of spousal sponsorships, you're still going to have specific questions about your case. That's just the reality because every case is so different. All right, so let's dive in. Natalia, who is the person who is eligible to apply for spousal sponsorship?
So for the spousal sponsorship, there are two sides. There is a sponsor who is a Canadian citizen or Canadian permanent resident, and there is a sponsored person. That's a person who the sponsor is in a relationship with. It could be a spouse or it can be a common law partner. There are other categories like conjugal partners, but we're not going to touch on that because that's really rare and it's complicated and really, really rare we can do these things. So common law partner is a person who the sponsor would be living together continuously for at least 12 months as a spouse. You just don't have a marriage certificate. So just living with someone else when you rent an apartment in a different rooms and you're just good friends, you want to help your friend out, that's not going to work. And that's the main thing that you have to think about. We can do any spousal sponsorship or common law sponsorship if it's a genuine relationship. That's question number one, and this is the thing that you have to keep in mind whatever you're doing with your application. You're filling in the forms, you're providing pictures, you're writing your stories. The officer will be looking into your package, checking if it's a genuine relationship or it's a fake thing.
So basically, who is eligible to apply is somebody who has genuine relationship with a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada, and they're either married or they've been living together continuously for 1 year on the same address, and they have various documents to prove that they've been residing together. A lot of clients that come to me, one of the questions they ask is, Maria, I heard about this Outland family sponsorship process and the In Canada sponsorship process. And there's a lot of confusion. Some lawyers, consultants recommend, no, just do in Canada, do outside Canada sponsorship because it could be faster. Like, what do you recommend?
Every situation is unique. And whatever we say right now, we have to look into your circumstances. In Canada or inland processing is where your package is being processed, where the officers that processing your application are situated. You can be in Canada or outside of Canada. We're going to touch on that. But outside of Canada means you can be in Canada, but your application is being processed in the consulate or embassy of your home country or any other country in the world. There's no guarantee that if you are from Poland, your application will be processed in Poland. Like right now, Poland is very busy with different types of applications, and they transfer your application to any free embassy or consulate.
Basically, like, let's say you live in Canada and someone told you, apply outside Canada because it's faster. And that's true. In many cases, it's faster. But let's say you're like, okay, you check processing times of your consulate. Let's say you're from France. You look it up and it's super fast. The reality is that with outside Canada embassies of Canada, we never know if something can go wrong. The embassy gets backlogged because a war happened nearby, and your file can get stuck, right? So what you're trying to say is like it's unpredictable.
Everything is unpredictable,
Yeah.
and we cannot guarantee anything. But if you want to be with your spouse, you want to make sure you stay together and you are physically in Canada, then most of the time we would recommend in Canada application. This is just overall. So the application is processed inside of Canada. You can stay in Canada as long as it takes. It can be 6 months, it can be 3 months, it can be 2 years. It doesn't matter.
I agree. Like my general recommendation is if you're in Canada, let's say you're a visitor in Canada, or worker or student, I agree with you. My general recommendation is to submit the application to the Inside Canada office because it's more predictable. Canadian immigration officers will be looking at your file, and there's less possibility of something going wrong. However, it is true that often this process could be a little bit slower. However, recently I'm noticing like I've been having inside Canada applications that are processed like within 3 to 5 months.
I don't see the difference.
So in the end, it's like just do it in Canada because it's safer, and you might not win any faster processing times in the end.
Actually, I've been doing those spousal sponsorships since 2015, like a lot of them. And I didn't see much difference in processing if it's in Canada. Like it's never been longer. They're still treated as a priority, as a family unification. So for those who are planning to stay in Canada, definitely inland application. But if you're traveling a lot and you're traveling together, and there's a possibility that while your application is being processed, you can get stuck outside of Canada and you can be separated from your spouse, or that's not very important if you're married. If you're common law, it's important. But you cannot come back. Say another COVID happens and the border is closed. If you cannot physically return to Canada, when the officer will get to your application, they will close it. So that's the only risk, really. If your application is genuine, we remind you this, then in Canada, 90%, I would say.
So basically, the recommendation is if you're traveling a lot, then yes, apply.
Then we can consider circumstances.
We can consider. It's still a discussion, and I often look at at a lot of different factors, and then we make a decision together with the client, like what is better. And there's one more benefit of applying inland. What is it?
Actually, for people coming from different countries, they want to know, when I enter, what can I do? Can I work? Can I study? Or what can I do? Most people want to work, and inland sponsorship allows you to receive, I think usually they give it for 2 years, like 2-year work permit.
1 to 2 years.
1 to 2 years, and if it's not enough time, you can extend it. So when the person applies inland, after submission of your spousal sponsorship application in 3 to 4 months, usually, you can get a work permit. Open work permit means you can work anywhere in Canada.
Processing times do differ. Sometimes, like when I applied for work permits, I would get the final spousal sponsorship approval before the work permit, but other times it can be reversed. It really depends, but it's nice to know that you have this option.
Yes. And if you are already in Canada on a work permit and you submit your spousal sponsorship in Canada, and you apply for an extension of your work permit, then they can take as much time as they want. You're extending your status, they can keep working.
Yeah, if your work permit is in process, you're allowed to legally work while...
So again, there's so many circumstances. Everyone is unique. Relationships are unique. Circumstances are unique. So we need to look into the details before we tell you what is the best option.
All right, Natalia, so I'm a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada. Like, what are the main requirements for me to be eligible to be a sponsor of my, let's say, spouse or common law partner?
Okay, if you are a citizen, you can actually be outside of Canada to initiate the process. Permanent residents of Canada have to be physically in Canada and they have to live in Canada to do it. Citizens can be in another country, apply for sponsorship, but show intention to return. What is intention to return? We can discuss later, but you can start the process before you move in. For some couples, it's very important. Recently, we had a consultation with the couple. They are young, they are very excited, and they're deciding, are we going to submit it before or after? Do we come to Canada and do inland sponsorship, as we discussed, because there's so many benefits of inland. But they are still planning to be in their country for 6 months. So for them, it might be beneficial to apply outside of Canada. They have still 6 months. When they come, maybe the process will be finished already.
Yeah.
Home violence or like family violence, that's the case. You have to be employed or have some income. There's no strict requirement in terms of how much money you have to make, but you have to show the officer you are able to provide for your family.
This is where a lot of people get confused. They ask, like, how much income should I have? How much savings should I have if I don't have income? There's no strict rule. Like, I had one client who had $7,000 income on his notice of assessment. And I was like, oh, that's probably not going to work. Like, that's too little money. But given where he was living in British Columbia, in a very remote area, and given, like, his recent new income, this notice of assessment was acceptable and everything went well. I was a bit worried, right? So basically, the officer wants to see that you filed your taxes if you're residing in Canada. Your taxes kind of meet the basic minimum income, but like, look, 7,000 was so little, right? And they have to be sure that you're not at risk to go on social assistance. So sponsor cannot be on social assistance.
They can be if they have a disability. Medical disability, it's not a problem, but social assistance not. And also, as Maria mentioned, notice of assessment is a mandatory requirement, most recent one, whatever you have. On top of that, you have to show your employment source. So usually this is letter of employment. So maybe 7,000 a year was last year. This year you just got the job and you have like 35, 50, whatever, 100,000. Again, unique situations, you will have your advice directly tailored to your situation. But overall, you have to have source of income to support your family. Sometimes you can have savings. You don't even have income. Or maybe your spouse that you sponsor and they're bringing in the money. You just have to explain to the officer how you're going to make it.
I've had many unique situations. Somebody's a part-time student. They don't have much income, but then their parents are providing extra support. There's the statements from the parents, support letters from the parents. Like, there's so many unique situations. There's no like clear rule, but we usually work with what the person has and we find solutions in terms of like what's the best way to gather the package of documents for the sponsor that would not give officer any doubts that they will go on social assistance, right?
Exactly.
The main point is the officer shouldn't doubt that you're going to go on, let's say, Ontario Works in Ontario, right? You cannot be on Ontario Works or be at risk to go on Ontario Works. And by the way, if you are a Canadian citizen who hasn't been a tax resident of Canada for a few years, you're not required to show notice of assessment. But the officer is going to be very like adamant in terms of, you know, what is your proof that you're actually now moving to Canada and you're going to be residing in Canada and paying taxes. They cannot approve somebody who is just like living outside Canada, enjoying life and not planning to live in Canada. So you have to demonstrate very, very carefully that you have the intention to move to Canada as a sponsor if you're doing the outside Canada sponsorship while you're living overseas. And this is also very unique. There's so many different ways you can demonstrate that intention. You have to basically show like you have a potential job waiting for you, or you have like you're buying a house, or you have all these letters from people. Like there's many different ways, right? But that's also an important note.
Intention can be proved by your property purchase searches. Maybe you're communicating with real estates. You can show intention to gain your employment in Canada by applying for even websites, Indeed, whatever it is. Your communication with the potential employers. You can show you've been employed in another country for. So they look at the overall situation. Sometimes people tell us, "Oh, what should I do? Maybe I can make a letter, or someone will write it to me." There's no one document that will prove your intention. There's no one document that will prove your relationship. It's a combination. They look at your application as the whole thing, and everything you submit, you need to understand what you have in mind when you're doing it.
And Natalia, can a sponsor be eligible to submit the application if he had recent bankruptcy?
You cannot be non-discharged bankrupt.
Yeah,
That's
so you
the
cannot.
key.
What about the responsibilities of the sponsor?
Oh, that's the not the funny part that we always touch during consultation because it's kind of a taboo thing. Like nobody wants to talk about what if it's not going to work. And sponsors are sometimes worried, or what if it's not going to work, what they're going to do. We always talk about these things because it's better when we know, then everyone knows what's going to happen and nobody is feeling uncomfortable. So for a spouse, what's the biggest risk? If the relationship doesn't work and you are not together after your spouse became a permanent resident, a sponsor is financially responsible for the sponsored person for 3 years.
What does that mean?
That means if your spouse decides to go and apply for a social assistance, the government of Canada will provide the basic needs to your spouse, and you will need to reimburse the government of Canada with all the expenses. That's it. Usually when people ask these questions, I'm just asking them, you have to have a conversation and ask each other, what's going to happen if it's not going to work? If you know that person, you are planning your life together, and that you don't trust that that person will behave like an appropriate and ethical way, then I think it's not a sponsorship that's a problem. So you have to talk about these things. You cannot guarantee, but if you know that person and they will tell you, okay, whatever happens, I'm not going to do this to you.
And I'm going to work. I'm going to find a job, right?
I'm going to find a job. And usually if you know the person, some people, they will die. They will never go for social assistance. They will do whatever.
And look, what is social assistance? Let's say in Ontario, it's $733. Like, who can survive on that, right? You actually can take employment insurance. So let's say if I'm a sponsored person and I was working in Canada for a year, government, and then I lost my job, government will take care of me and give me employment insurance. That's allowed.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, it's a different thing. Your spouse will be allowed to do that. It's the social assistance is when you already don't have EI, employment insurance, and you have no other options, and you basically are just like not looking for a job. You can't even find any basic job, right? Then government's not going to just drop you. They're going to give you $733 roughly. I'm not sure what's the current amount.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, the last time I checked, it was $733 in Ontario, and it's provincial social assistance. That's what the sponsor is responsible for, is if for 3 years after the applicant or the sponsored person becomes a permanent resident, for 3 years he cannot borrow money from provincial social assistance. And if he does, this money becomes the debt for the Canadian citizen or permanent resident who sponsored him. That's the only obligation that the...
Another thing, also, yes, this becomes a debt, and if it's not paid, then if time goes by and a sponsor decides to sponsor someone else,
Or parents even.
they cannot bring in anyone in Canada under any family sponsorship until they reimburse the government in Canada. And that's the thing, sometimes people, when they get separated, they don't even know. Another person can do it just to hurt you. That happens. I had this case.
I had a situation when that's what happened. The sponsor wasn't paying, and then he meets another lady like 5 years later, and he had to like pay the debt before we could submit the application.
Did he know he had a debt?
He knew. The moment he paid the debt, we submitted application, everything went well.
That's number one. Number two, sponsored person cannot bring in, if the application doesn't, or application works, everything's fine, 2 years down the road, relationship breaks up. The permanent resident who became a permanent resident as a result of a sponsorship cannot sponsor a new spouse until 5 years passed since they became a permanent resident.
Yeah, I've had a situation when basically there was a sponsorship, and years later, one of the people got into a bad fight with his new wife, and the wife, the first sponsorship was fake, and the new wife decided to tell that to the government. She sent a letter and she said, look, my husband like 10 years ago sponsored someone and it was a fake thing. Guess what happened? They reopened the file and they took it to court.
Yes.
And then I don't know what happened in the end. They had to prove, like, I didn't want to deal with it, to be honest. But I don't know what happened in the end, but probably they took away the citizenship of the person who got it, in the end as a fake relationship. So never do fake spousal sponsorships. Never. This is very serious. You can have somebody who means wrong to you, sends a letter. It can, pop up years later. Do everything ethically. That's my best recommendation. How do we prove that we are in a genuine relationship? Because this is one of the main requirements. Like, I had a friend who was an immigration officer, and he said, basically, when he was looking at spousal sponsorship, he had about 25 minutes per file. That was years ago. Maybe it's changed. And in those 25 minutes, he had to look through all these documents that prove that the relationship is genuine, and he had to leave a note what he feels. Of course, like, they have to provide reasons for it. They can't just be like, oh, I feel like it's wrong, right?
Sometimes they do that too.
Possibly, I've never heard that, but possibly, right? But if your package that you're preparing for the officer to review is not clear, it's not like very clear that it's a genuine relationship, there's not enough proof, it's very possible that they will not approve you, or they can put you kind of on the back burner and your file can sit there forever until you get procedural fairness request or interview. So basically, the fast processing times are only for straightforward applications. If your file is very well prepared, there's all the required documents in place, it's very clear that it's a genuine relationship, then it's processed fast. If it's not clear, you can waste a lot of time, be asked to come for an interview, and you can have a lot of issues. So which documents do we need to have in the application so that the officer doesn't have doubts that it's a genuine relationship?
That's a really good question. And when we have consultations with our clients, sometimes talking to people, we can tell if they're in a good relationship or if they're in a relationship at all. But what I always tell our clients is like, our officers don't have this privilege to talk to you and to see you. So our job is to provide them with this feeling, everything is genuine, everything is all right. And whatever you're doing, it's the forms, these are your letters, these are your documents proving your address, these are notes to the pictures. And when people put pictures, yes, they put the best pictures when they're together here and there, but we always ask to provide pictures where they are in a social environment with their family, friends, different events, because anyone can get a bag of clothes and go and take pictures, like 50 pictures, different clothes, different backgrounds.
No selfies, thank you. Like, they're not going to be interested in your selfies. It has to be, you're right, let's say with different friends in like a nice restaurant or like Niagara Falls. Like, you could be a selfie, but in Niagara Falls, you know what I mean?
Yes, it can be 1-2 selfies, but while you're there, this is our celebration. They look at notes. They don't have much time, but don't think about, there's one picture, that's enough. No, maybe they will not even open it. They have very limited time. Every document that you provide, you have to keep in mind, this is the document the officer might be looking at, and they don't have to have questions. They have to be persuaded, like, this is a real thing. So your pictures, your stories, your letters from friends, yes, it's easy to say, yes, we know these people, they've been together, that's it. Provide some real things, some situations when one of you were sick and what did the other one did. Or someone was outside of Canada for so long and how you communicate. Maybe that would be the main thing, because you were separated for several months, but you were still keeping in touch, and how you supported yourself in that situation. So there are so many things. There's no one document. They always ask, which document? No one document. Overall, and everything they look at, that might be the point of their decision.
Yeah, the way I say is it's the bigger picture that counts. There's obviously required documents. Let's say you have to have a few proof that, a few documents that prove that you've resided together, right? If you don't live together at time of application, yes, there's like messages that you can show that, you're speaking to each other. When, let's say, the couple traveled a lot, that's very important to show like all the pictures that are obvious are from different countries. Sometimes if there's not enough proof, they can even show itineraries. Mm-hmm. So there are strict checklists. If, let's say, there's a document in the checklist you cannot obtain, you have to explain why and provide something alternative. So it's often a straightforward process. Let's say the couple is residing together, they have a lease, they have like IDs for the same address, they have bills. Then they provided like 20 pictures. They provided proof that they support each other financially. They have, let's say, insurance together. That's pretty clear. But oftentimes you can't get all of these documents, and you have to get a bit more creative to make sure that, first of all, the officer wouldn't even return your package.
Yeah.
Because they can return your package and cancel the whole application if you don't submit enough check marks on that list.
You can have an actually perfect package with everything in it, but if in a checklist you didn't put enough checks, check marks, they're going to return. You need to understand the application goes through several stages of processing, and the first stage is where it's just physically, are there pictures? Yes, no. There are forms? Yes, no. Are there signatures on the form? There's no signature, or it should be a live signature and you have electronic signature, or simple things, they can get you really, really far from processing.
The way I always talk about spousal sponsorship application is, honestly, it's not rocket science. You could do it yourself. But if you don't have experience, if you don't know what the officers are looking for, if you don't know what kind of bigger picture you're looking for, you're not careful, and if you are not careful with like a certain check mark, you waste a lot of time. Usually it would be a return of your application. You have to do everything all over from scratch, but it could be even a refusal if you're not careful. Let's say you provided some information in your personal history, in your relationship history with your spouse. You provided one date, and then your friend mentioned a different date. Let's say you said, we met in November of 2021. And your friend said, oh, this couple met in October 2021. The officer could be like, huh.
That happens all the time.
All the time. Or like, let's say you've been living together, but your address history doesn't match address history of your sponsor. It's very important that everything is super, super consistent with what you have in your relationship history, in your support letters, in your forms. And this is what we do. We do like a very detailed check of your file for every little nuance. And by the way, we forgot to talk about relationship history. How important is that?
Oh, that's important. And talking about the dates, again, you need to understand everyone is using technology now, and officers also do that. It's known fact. So all the forms you submit, they're processed by artificial intelligence. So if there's any date that doesn't match, it goes automatically for secondary review or something. You automatically get, if you're lucky, a delay. You don't want to do that. So we know what they're checking. And sometimes there can be situations you live in one city and you work in another, maybe remotely. And if you don't mention this specifically, yes, the system will catch it, but the officer reviewing this will say, oh, remote work, fine. If you don't have this note, you might have 3-4 months extra. You don't want to go there.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit more about relationship history?
Relationship history, that's also important. If you looked at the forms, they're very basic. You met here, anyone introduced you, yes or no? Have you been living together? Your address, and that's it. If I will tell you I met that person 3 years ago, my brother introduced me and we've been living, is it enough for you to make overall picture? No. The officer need to feel this is a real thing. So we start from the beginning, how you met, what the circumstances, who liked what, who didn't like what, and who made the first step, who offered to go out, what did you like about that person. So we describe the whole story and we try to pull the unique things. So the officer, when they read like a book. They're like, oh my God, they can't stop. And when they're emotionally involved and they really believe you, and they will believe you if you have a real story, they will be helping themselves to approve your application. So our job in the relationship story to make the officer's job easy. They're also people. They also wake up with bad moods. They have problems. When they come to work, I always tell my job is to make the officer's job easy decision. Yes. People sometimes meet with different cultures, and sometimes in the, like, say, Eastern part, like Chinese, Indian, they have specific traditions there. Yeah. Family chooses a spouse.
Yeah,
arranged marriage or something. People like, oh, that's weird, so they don't think so. Or family choose one person and they don't agree. They find someone else, and the whole family is not supportive. So we don't have pictures from family, we don't have photographs, we don't have nothing. And just to avoiding this, it's not a solution, because the officer will ask why. There's nobody is aware, and then we specifically pull it out and say, yes, the family is against because he's not Indian or whatever, not from the same tradition, or it can be a big age difference. That's also a factor, and that's okay as long as we provide with this information and we disclose that this is what happened. Family is against it. That's fine, but we say they didn't go for the wedding. They are not supportive. We don't communicate with them. As long as we explain it, that's fine.
You can write arguments, affidavits, and provide supporting documents that would give the officer an impression, okay, sure, this is a unique situation, but everything looks legit.
Yeah.
It's just a unique situation, and then no problem. Let's take a kind of like standard situation. You're residing together in Canada, right? So first you would need proof that you reside together. So let's say a lease is the most common proof if you rent an apartment together or condo together. Then you can have driver's license, which has the same address for both of you. If you don't drive, there's identity card you can get from the province, which looks similar to driver's license and can have your address. Most provinces would give it to you, no problem, if you're just a visitor. Then you need to show proof that you financially support each other. You need to show an insurance that you have together if you have it. If not, you can provide a joint account statement, joint bank statement. And as a visitor, you can go to the bank, get this joint bank account statement. And I recommend to send each other transfers. Let's say you do share some groceries. And if you have these e-transfers sent to each other, then you have enough check marks on that list for financial assistance to each other. And like we discussed, it's usually about 20 photographs, right? That are, I can't remember the exact number, but there's like a set number on the checklist, and you shouldn't go over it. And you have to make sure all those photographs are in different places with different people and they reflect a real, genuine relationship. And I usually recommend to put them, the way I recommend to clients is you can take a Word document, paste the photographs, and type where is this, who's in the picture, and what year it is. Then support letters, I recommend 3-4 support letters from each side.
With the list, we will provide a point list. I think that will be easy, but just to elaborate on that. For the pictures, yes, I think it's 10 or 20, but I usually go with that number, and I provide more, but this is a number of pages.
Yeah.
And in one page, I use PowerPoint. Usually, actually, we always send the template where people can post a picture and put a note. Also, communication. Even if people live together, it says, if you don't live together, provide your communication. Usually I provide, even if they're together, because people post in Instagram, they post in Facebook.
Best, yeah.
So this is good because you show outside world that you have real relationship.
Yeah, social media presence. If you do post pictures on social media of you together, this is important. Evidence.
And the officers checking that, believe it or not, they will go and check, and there are cases when files were either refused or put on a secondary assessment because people were with someone else on their Facebook, or they were just saying things that don't look like they're a couple. You can show the officer your communication when you're not together, even on a daily basis. That's also a factor. If you say, we meet tomorrow at 5 p.m., okay, in 3 days, okay, do you have a package of this? They can feel your communication. It's not, there's no way to say it, how to say it, but you have to provide the real communication.
There's some people who submitted me communication. They don't live together. They live in different countries. And all it is I love you, honey. I love you, honey. It doesn't look real. You shouldn't be just talking I love you, honey, every day.
There's something else. In between.
Hello, if you have a relationship, you're going to discuss a lot more things. So just be smart about it.
Be real.
And yes, so let's just wrap it up. First of all, I want to say that we do not accept non-genuine relationships. So we only accept applications that we can help you prepare if you're a genuine couple. And second, I wanted to summarize and explain that it is an application that you can do yourself, and we offer file checks. So let's say you've done it yourself and you want to come to us, and we will do a very, very detailed file check. That's an option. If you're somebody who doesn't want to spend time and you'd rather just pay a representative who will do a good job for you, provide you simple checklist, fill out all of your forms, take all the headache from you, and you have a lot more free time, then we can do that as well. Number 3 is I wanted to summarize the most common refusal reasons or mistakes that could lead to refusal. So I'll just briefly, shout out what I remember, and you can add. So any check mark on the application, any missing signature, any missing important form, any required document. Let's say you've had divorces and you forgot to provide divorce certificate because it's, you didn't read the requirements careful enough. That's more for cancellation, and refusal can happen if the bigger picture is just not clear.
If you want to do it yourself, I personally always recommend go and check the online guides. Check the forms, check the documents, and see what it is, so you will have a picture in your mind. Do you want to deal with this, or you want to hand it over to someone else? Go through the process so you can understand overall stages and what is required. And when you come for a consultation, you already have an idea, at least what it is. And then the first consultation, I always ask, okay, you want to do it yourself or not? And not just because like, oh, I'm not going to tell you anything. No, I want to know if you want to do it yourself. Tell me what you know, and I will not be telling you the overall story. Like, I want to know where you're missing your parts. So if you know already most of it and you have specific questions, that may be first and last consultation. Another thing, if you don't want to deal with the first impression of the application, you just say, I want to do it and I don't know. And we can tell you, okay, this is the process. This is stage one. You collect those documents, you fill in the forms, you write those stories, you do this and this and this. And then person goes back, goes over the process themselves again and decide. And if they do it themselves, they already come back to us with not with a lousy application that we have to check every single line. And it takes so much of our time if we are checking the application. And we charge, of course, we charge by hour. If your application is a good quality, it will take us like 3-4 hours to review, done. If it's something absolutely brand new, like no one knows what they're doing, it can take 3-4 hours at the beginning. We send you back our feedback.
Because we send a lot of feedback.
We send all
as
the
well,
feedback,
right?
and we have to write it down. It's our time. Then you check it, you fix it, you send it back to us. We go over everything again. So this is the fee where it comes from, our time. If you prepare a perfect application, it's fast for us to process, to check it and send it back to you, and you're done. If not, more time we spend, more time you pay.
Thank you so much, Natalia. I hope that this was a very useful little podcast for you who are interested or who need to submit a spousal sponsorship application soon. If you have any questions, you can leave them in comments. You can also find us on Instagram. We are leaving our website in the description. And if you need our help, you can reach out to us. You can book a consultation directly through our website. And I wish you good luck, good fortune with submitting a spousal sponsorship application and with your new life in Canada. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again.
This video is for people interested in filing sponsorship application for their spouses and common law partners. For Canadian citizens willing to sponsor their spouses or common law partners, Canadian permanent residents willing to sponsor their spouses and common law partners, and also for foreign nationals who are currently in Canada or outside in Canada, but they are in genuine relationship with Canadian citizens and permanent residents. In this video, we will tell you who we are and why we are doing what we're doing. We will tell you the most common mistakes that people make on that road, and we will provide you with the reasons why you would want to work with us or with another professional on this road. Who we are. We are a group of professionals who are working on spousal applications for over 10 years. We have expertise with different types of relationship in Canada spousals, outside of Canada, also known as overseas sponsorships. We work with spousal applications, common law applications, same-sex marriages applications, you name it. Whatever your situation is, please be assured we can help you. We work with similar situations and we solved the problems. My name is Natalia Romanenko. I've been living in Canada since 2007 and I've been working in this industry professionally since 2012. And since 2015, I have my own license and we've been working successfully with different types of applications, specifically specializing in sponsorship applications in Canada. 3 most common mistakes when people applying for spousal sponsorships. Mistake number 1, incomplete, missing information. If you submit incomplete application, your application will be automatically returned to you. You're gonna spend more time to prepare a new application. You will have to find what you were missing. So our advice number 1, make sure you submit complete application. Mistake number 2 is false or misleading information. The officer doesn't care if you submitted information by mistake incorrectly or it was on purpose. If you submit incorrect, false information, your application will be refused. In the worst case scenario, you will be banned for 5 years to come to Canada. Point number 3 in the reasons for refusals is red flags in your application that can lead the officer to think your application is not genuine. Genuinity is the most important factor, and you always have to explain unusual situation, something that you're not sure about. It could be difference in your age, it can be difference in your cultural situations. All these things, if not properly explained, can lead to the delay or refusal of your application. The main steps and timeline for the applications are as follows. First stage is you prepare the application. This can vary and it depends on how efficient you are in the process. It can take from 1 month to 6 months for people to gather all necessary documents and complete the forms. Step number 2 is submission of your application. You are doing it online right now, and as soon as it's submitted, that's your official timeline starts. After successful submission of the application and receiving the confirmation of receipt, you will receive a medical examination request. After this step, usually, if there's no questions towards your applications, if everything is clear, your application is approved. From the submission of the application until the approval stage, it can take from 3-4 months up to a year. Could be faster, could be longer. Why do you need a consultation with a professional? First of all, we will look into your specific circumstances in your situation and provide you with the tailored solution to your particular situation. We will provide you with the requirements, forms, documents, instructions, and we will guide you about possible red flags on the way to your application submission. During that process, you can ask any questions, and more prepared you are, better answers we can give you. If you decide to work on your own, we will provide you with the specific instructions for the areas where you struggle with. If you decide to hand your application to professionals to submit on your behalf, we will work with you from the beginning until the end, and we'll be supporting you on each step of the way. Whatever you decide with, we are here to help you to make this application an easy process so you can focus on your life in Canada and on your future plans. For those who decide to start the process, we offer 3 options. Option number 1 is a consultation. Consultations can be from 30 to 45 minutes, and you can have as many of them as you need. Second option is file review. With this option, we still suggest that you take a consultation so the review does not take as much time and your application is prepared according to the standards. This will save you time and money. And third option we offer is full support. That's where we guide you from day 1 until the submission and after submission of the application until you become a permanent resident.